Hey guys, it's Cwiklinski here with Sports Betting Dime. I'm here today with our regulatory writer, Rob Linnehan, and we're talking about the next states that could potentially launch for sports betting legalization. With the launch of Missouri sports betting kind of behind us now in the books, we're looking ahead to the next set of potential states that could launch in the very near future or not so near future, depending on how you look at it. So Rob, I just wanted to just quickly start off by asking, obviously, as I just mentioned there, the Missouri sports betting launch is now behind us. What states are you hearing about that could potentially launch next as far as sports betting goes?
Yeah, no problem, Pat. Thanks for having me on. As always, great to talk with you. Well, I mean, this is just my opinion, of course, because most of the state legislative sessions haven't started yet. There aren't a whole lot of official talks going on right now as we sort of come to the end of 2025. But there are two states that I have had my eye on as prime targets for sports betting or online sports betting legalization in 2026. Those states are Wisconsin and Hawaii. Not exactly the biggest potential markets in the world. You're not going to hear me saying anything positive about California or Texas or some of the other larger states that we're all waiting for. But no, Hawaii and Wisconsin could have the best chance. Wisconsin actually has had some discussions over the past few months. Right now, sports betting is legal in Wisconsin. However, it's only legal for Wisconsin tribes. And online sports betting is semi-legal, where you can do online sports betting, but you can only do it on tribal land that have approved gaming compacts. So it's legal, but it's not really legal, and you can't do it anywhere outside of a tribal casino. However, there are several bills right now, and legislators are talking about potentially allowing federally recognized Wisconsin tribes to amend their gaming compacts to allow online sports betting. There was going to be a vote in the assembly on a bill. The assembly speaker was very positive and very confident that the bill would have been approved. However, they decided to put it on hold until the start of 2026. There are a lot of questions right now as to how online sports betting would look in Wisconsin. The way that it's set up right now, revenue sharing between tribes and gaming operators such as FanDuel and DraftKings would not make things economically viable for these companies to actually come into the Wisconsin market. They'd be required to give up far too much of their revenue to make it an appealing place to do business. I think they're going to have some Wisconsin legislators and tribal leaders and gaming industry leaders are going to have some discussions moving forward, and then everything will pick back up again at the start of 2026. There seems to be a lot of positivity around the state legalizing. I think it stands a really good chance to get something done. How that's going to look, I'm not quite sure. In Hawaii, earlier this year, you had an online sports betting bill pass in both the Hawaii House of Representatives and the Senate. However, they could not come to a conclusion, or they could not come to an agreement on what the online sports betting tax rate would look like. So basically, it died on the last day of session without the Senate or the House coming to an agreement. They're definitely going to pick up discussions again in the 2026 session. They've probably discussed and they've probably already started working out a compromise on what the tax rate is going to look like. So I would expect Hawaii to absolutely pick up discussions again, have a lot of positive discussions about it, and potentially get something done in 2026. For both of these states, you could expect if a bill is approved, it would likely happen within the first 4 months. If you're looking, I'd expect somewhere between April and May. If either of those states get something done, that's when it's going to happen. However, we know that legalization and a bill being signed does not mean that a state is going to launch sports betting right away. If either of them do legalize this year, You probably wouldn't see a launch until well later into 2026. You thinking, at the earliest, November, probably looking more so in December or even early 2026. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of months to get this stuff up and started. It's not like just putting a switch on and everything is ready to go. So if anything gets done, it's going to be quite a bit of a chore to get a launch in 2025. You'd probably be looking more so at these states launching in early 2026. In terms of other states, Georgia, Minnesota, they'll discuss as always. Oklahoma has discussed in the past couple years. There seem to be quite a few fundamental disagreements in these states. How sports betting should be legalized, what it should look like, what a tax rate should look like. So I'm not exactly too high on any other states, but I do think Wisconsin and Hawaii could potentially get something done this year.
That's potentially good news for the people of Wisconsin and Hawaii as well. I mean, a lengthy process ahead. Still a lot of hoops to get through before we get there, obviously, as you mentioned there, Rob, but seems like it's headed in a positive direction. Now, hate to put you on the spot with all the good people of California and Texas, but I got to ask for an update. I mean, we obviously know there hasn't been much noise around those two states, but they are some of the biggest states in America, and they are, without legal sports betting options at the moment. Have you heard anything around that, those two states in particular, or is there any hope? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel potentially at some point in time?
Well, not great news for either state. Texas, they meet once every 2 years for a legislative session. They had a legislative session in 2025. There was some discussion. There were a few sports betting bills, casino regulation or casino legalization bills that were introduced. Nothing even came close to getting done. The Senate, the Texas Senate, Texas Republicans are definitely not on board with either casino or sports betting legalization. And then they're not going to meet in 2026. So you can forget about Texas to even starting up discussions again on either of those topics until at least 2027. California, as we know, everything is controlled by the California tribes. Companies like FanDuel and DraftKings, they've basically said, look, we're going to take a back seat in California. They obviously had a failed referendum vote a few years back that really sort of soured relationships with the tribes. Since then, they've really sort of tried to reconnect and repair their relationships, basically saying, hey, look, we're not going to do anything to lead this. We're going to go by what the tribes want. And the tribes really haven't had too much, or haven't really given too much indication that they're even interested in legalizing sports betting at the moment. 26 is a year that is eligible for a voter referendum. That is how sports betting would have to be legalized. But the tribes really haven't said that they're going to propose a voter referendum. In many interviews I've seen and have read with tribal leaders, it seems like 2028 is a much more likely year that they could get something done at the polls to legalize sports betting. That's, again, if they even want to. They really haven't had too many serious discussions. Really hasn't been anything concrete on the record as to when, these tribal organizations want to legalize sports betting, or even if they do want to legalize sports betting. So neither of those states are really looking too good in the next few years to get anything done via sports betting or sports betting legalization.
That's fair enough. But so you're saying there's a chance, though.
Sure, yeah.
Of
The
course.
chance to maybe get something done in the next 5 years, I suppose.
For sure, for sure. No, I appreciate the update there on those two fronts with California and Texas. And I mean, it actually kind of plays into this kind of next question here. The big buzzword of the industry right now, prediction markets. They're everywhere. You can't escape them right now. They seem to be just everywhere you look. And I'm curious when it comes to prediction markets, in your opinion, is there any kind of impact that those may potentially have sort of in the short and long term on the overall sports betting market from a legal perspective there?
Well, I haven't seen too much in the way of it making states or causing states to say, oh, we really have to start legalizing sports betting now if we want to control this, if we want to get a piece of the pie. That has not happened yet. I will say that a lot of the worries of the prediction markets and especially sport event contracts in those markets cutting in to legalize sports betting, the markets that are already legalized and set up in states like New York and Ohio, that hasn't happened. Over the last couple months, you've seen a number of states report record-setting sports betting numbers. This past November, New York made the most money it's ever made in sports betting revenue since it launched several years ago. You've had record-setting handle numbers in Ohio and Massachusetts over the last few months. The sports betting industry and the sports betting numbers certainly are not being too affected by these new markets. I think worries that, it really was going to cut into some of this business hasn't come to fruition yet. So, I mean, hey, look, it's not really giving, it's not really encouraging these states to change anything or really rushing them to get into legalized sports betting. It hasn't been as much of a threat as many people had predicted. So I know we'll see what happens, but for right now, it really hasn't cut into too much of what any of these big companies or any of what these states are seeing for sports betting tax revenue.
Interesting times definitely ahead for sure. I appreciate all the time today, Rob. Make sure to follow us at SBD on X for the latest updates. Make sure to check us out, sportsbettingdime.com, for the latest from Rob about, all the upcoming state news that could be on the way in the near future. Thanks so much and take care, guys.
Thank you, Pat.